Gear Tasting Radio is brought to you by Imminent Threat Solutions. ITS provides knowledge that empowers individuals with indispensable skill sets to explore the world and prevail against all threats. Right now, as a special thank you for all podcast listeners, we're offering 10% off in the ITS store. Simply use the code GTR to save 10% at store.itstactical.com. Welcome to Gear Tasting Radio, where we offer an in-depth look into the usage and philosophy behind the equipment in our lives. I am joined, as always, by Rob Henderson.
Hello.
And I am Brian Black, and we are talking today about why you should not make a New Year's resolution.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. Happy New Year.
Cancel all those resolutions.
Yeah. Don't even bother. Honestly, what I'd like to do really is kind of pitch what I advocate as a New Year kind of objective. And really what I think is that the last few weeks of the year is kind of your chance to recap what happened during the year, you know, excuse me, it's kind of some pros and cons of both things that you achieved during the year and things that maybe you didn't quite achieve and you still want to set those as goals for next year. And really just getting a good horizon picture of the year that just completed, as well as looking at next year. So, I've tried to tie Kelly into that. Like, I've tried to sit down with her and say, hey, let's look at the year. Like, what did we accomplish? What did we get done? What do we, what, and
how did that
it just
go?
Never really works right. So I wind up kind of doing it myself. Because a lot of the things that we do, that I do accomplish, are with Kelly and have to do with goals that we have personally in our lives too. But at the same time, I really kind of like that it's by myself, because I do get to reflect on the things that really kind of matter to me.
Sure. And
that's where like journaling can come into. You can just kind of journal those things and just start writing and say, oh, well, I did this and that, and turn it into one of those stupid Christmas cards that people send where they recap their their children's accomplishments.
Sadie got the honor roll again.
Yeah. There's I say that just because there was I think we talked about it in Ridiculous Dog. There was a huge dissertation we used to get from this woman that Kelly knew, and she was kind of a single jet setter, and she would recap everywhere she went during the year. Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. Anyway, I think that's a better use of the time.
Yeah.
And, for some people, a New Year's resolution is get fit or
and
go
that's
to the
the
gym.
thing. Is most of the time it's like, oh, I want to lose weight. Oh, I want to stop smoking. And so, to me, you're just using New Year to procrastinate.
Well, I agree with that, too. Because what happens is you wind up getting this idea maybe mid-December, maybe even late December, and then you're like, oh, it's no big deal. I can eat like shit until the end of I still got 6 days.
Exactly.
And you're only cheating yourself when you do that. So
I always think of it as like, if you could go back right now, 12 months ago, and convince yourself to do one thing, would you do it? You know, hey, go for a walk every day, or hey, put down the pack of cigarettes, or whatever it is. And like, you'd say yes. And so like, why would you just delay what you can just start right now? Like, I know a lot of people don't want to start, and especially when it comes to like getting organized, they're like, oh, well, I don't have the right type of files and stuff. It's like, no, it doesn't matter. You can make piles. You can make your own files out of paper or whatever. It's like, if you have the motivation to get organized, procrastinating doesn't do you any good.
Well, I think one of the other things that people get trapped in with goals and aspirations is they don't allow themselves to have the permission to do what they need to do to make it happen. So an example of that, what brought it to my mind was that you were talking about organization and office supplies. They don't allow themselves to go out and buy a really good file cabinet that's not going to squeak every time you open it, or buy those folders that are going to keep you organized because it costs a little bit of money. Like, it's okay. Most average people
will help.
Have enough money to purchase those kind of things without it being a detriment to their financial situation. So, and yes, I mean, quality stuff costs money, but at the same time, what is a goal worth to you? What is what is increasing? And I look at that too. Like skills are huge to me, as well as just personal life goals that help me be a better person. I mean, I guess that's a way to say it.
I think it kind of rolls into like, as it goes forward, I care more about like what I would call my mental health than I do about stuff. And so if getting a good file cabinet is going to put me in a better spot mentally because everything's organized and I don't have to think about, oh, where's that last bill? Did I pay it? You know, all that kind of stuff. You will free up so much of your psychic time of like, you're not having to think about this stuff anymore. So like, yes, it's expensive, but it's not in the long run.
Well, and I see that as, you know, with a time value too. Like, for instance, let's just use electronic bill pay as an example. So it takes a long time to set up all that stuff. You have to enter all your information, you have to configure it, you have to get your payments correct. But once it's set up, the time savings that gives you on the back end is just tremendous.
Absolutely.
And, you know, not having to think about those kind of things is just amazing. So that's how, you know, that's how we should look at productivity too. It should help you to eliminate things that constantly nag on your psyche.
Yeah.
So.
It's like I see a lot of times in programming, people will write scripts to do little things for them automatically. And so if you can write scripts in your own life to like you said, auto bill pay or like, you know, every time you get an email, it triggers this kind of notification or whatever you're doing. If you can take the time to set that up, and that's why I think New Year's is a great time to do that versus like, okay, I'm gonna go to the gym. Like just go to the gym and set it up. And like, even if it's like, okay, I'm gonna put my workout clothes on. You know, that's your step one and go from there. But like, it doesn't have to be waiting for a date. I think a lot of people wait for like, oh, well, I'll do it next month.
I agree with the small steps too. And, you know, lots of people have lofty, ambitious goals, and there's nothing wrong with those huge, audacious goals. But in reality, if you, like you said, if you can just wake up in the morning, let's just use wake up in the morning. You know, if I can just start getting up at the time that I'd like to, or even work my way up to the time I'd like to get up at. If you can get to that point, and then it becomes, okay, I've been doing this for a month. Now I'm going to put on workout clothes every morning when I wake up because that's what I want to achieve. And I mean, they can be small things like that, but it just makes a huge difference.
Well, and you'll see small progress, but at the same time, what's better? Hitting it full on at the first of the year, you're waking up early, you're working out, your body's completely changed, and then you quit a couple weeks in, or like slowly building up over 6 months to build a habit. Because that, I mean, it is hard to re-change or to edit habits that you have in your life, especially when it comes to stuff like even organization. Like if you get mail and you don't open it at that time and you just throw it in the same box, and then you never look at it, that's a hard habit to break because your brain gets to make that disassociation of like, don't have to think about that.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was just over at my dad's house over Christmas, and you know he's bad about organization, so I don't really know where I come from, but
an anomaly.
But my grandma's really organized, so maybe it skipped a generation or something. But at any rate, I walked into his house and he's got this big pile of paper stuff on his coffee table, and that's on par for my dad, and it's actually way less than it should be typically because he moved into a new place and he
just hasn't had time to build.
Exactly. But one thing I noticed is like all the envelopes of those bills or what have you get used still. So he takes, he opens the bill, looks at it, puts it back in the envelope, and then leaves it on the thing. So in my mind, I'm saying, even if you took the small step of just throwing away the envelopes and, laying the papers flat and putting them into a stack, you would just, you would be able to find stuff easier. Right. It would, I don't know. Yeah. I can't teach old dog new tricks. So
sure.
I have to pick my battles with my dad, but
I think a lot of it comes down to everybody has their own system, but it's when I see failures in the system when it's like, well, hey, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
If he was putting the stuff in the envelopes and it like had a labeling system and like he could find anything within a snap, okay, cool, yeah, you got your own system. Yeah. But when it's like, hey, where's this? It's like, hold on, it's going to take me a while.
Well, and maybe to his credit, maybe he sees like a company logo on the envelope and that alerts him to something he needs to look for rather than looking through a bunch of pieces of paper. I don't know.
Who knows?
Trying to give him some
Try not to push my system too much on people.
Yeah.
I can change your life.
Yeah. But, that's I think what the new year should be about is
like a reflection.
Yeah. I think reflection, that's a great way to say it, is probably the best goal to have for going into the new year, is reflecting on the year that's passed, giving yourself some things that you didn't maybe quite accomplish that you still want to do, and move those into next year is kind of your your first of the year action items, and
Sure.
and look at those independently and say, okay, why didn't I accomplish these? Is there like we were saying, some little step that I could do to make this happen? Because that's really, that goes back to the whole GTD thing we've talked about over and over again, is that you can't clean the garage. You can only do the little steps to get the garage clean.
Sure.
Like take the clothes to the Salvation Army or whatever. So looking at those goals that you have, that's kind of a good way to look at it as well. Like, hey, what's a small step I could take to get me further to in order to achieve this? So
Well, and I think also not enough people look at like overarching life stuff. You know, I mean, it's people always look at me real cheesy when I'm like, "What's your 5-year goal?" And stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like to have at least a direction that you're heading. Like if you want to learn to play the piano, that's not going to happen within like a month.
Yeah.
You have to go a little bit more long term. It's like, so did you point all your little goals in that direction? That's why I think it's good to reflect on the year of like, I'd like to learn to do this, and then it's like you said, it's little actions. It's not like, hey, here's my bucket list.
yeah. Well, I do have kind of a list like that. I mean, I have things that I want to accomplish in life, but I think I do reflect on that once a year too. Like that is part of what I look at in my review. Is I look at that outstanding list of things that I want to do, and do I want to add some things to, my routine that are going to get me closer to those goals? And typically, I will start to look at that and add those things in, but it's got to be small things, or it's never going to happen. Like, I mean, I'd say for the better part of the last year, well, I don't know when this is going to air, but the better part of 2017, I wanted to have a day every week that I went and shot. Like that was a goal of mine, and it hardly happened.
Yep.
And I'm not sure why. I don't know exactly what I could do to change that, but that's something I want to look at for this year, is to say, okay, what's going to, is it the stress of trying to go every week that was getting to me? Should it be once a month first? And then maybe I can, get used to it, and then I start adding days in during the month or something like that. But, maybe it's every quarter.
Yeah.
I don't like to wait that long. And I typically do wind up shooting, quite often with friends or something like that. But, I mean, just getting to the range by myself, working on specific drills, like that's pistol work really is what I want to do. And if that I can get to those, once a week thing, I'd love to be there. So
I'm trying to think in my head. I would be like, I think I would buy ammo like once a month to know that if I didn't go shooting, ammo would just stack up. So it's like,
but wouldn't you think of that as a good thing too? Like, hey, I got
well, so that's and then it's like, well, I'm gonna skip the range. I got some surplus, but like, so you would try to force yourself to do it, but then it could be a double-edged sword to where you're like, well, no, I mean, it never hurts to have surplus ammo.
And then you start collecting that number. You're like, I'm almost to 50,000.
Yeah, and now
rounds.
it's a goal of like, instead of shooting, you're like, well, I could just stockpile at least 50,000. That'd be great.
No, but I need to do something like that, something to get me more in the habit. But I mean, honestly, I really don't have any excuses either, which is why it's so tough for me, because I literally have a range that's probably 10 minutes from my house I'm a member of. So I just don't have an excuse.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. I'm not sure.
It's those little things.
Yeah. That's one for me to ponder, obviously. But it's just an example of something that's, kind of on my list too. But I mean, I do think it's important to have some kind of place to keep track of things you want to accomplish in your life, but I've never really been one, like you were saying, about the 5-10 year plan and things like that. I've never really been one to put that in that kind of perspective, because I've just, I don't know, I've had some kind of aversion to that through the years. Like, I mean, even when I started a business, and people out there are probably going to laugh at me, but I never had a business plan. I winged it. I went into it. Things worked. I kept going down that road, and I kept building from there. And it's been successful, knock on wood. But I just never really had a hardcore plan. It was always just doing what I wanted to do,
which I think is how a lot of people end up doing stuff anyway, whether they had it in their plan or not. Because I think when you set it, I don't know, like concrete like that. The other thing I've noticed is as I get older, a year is a shorter time frame.
Oh God, yes.
So, whereas when I was 18, it was like, what's your 5-year plan? That's a long time. Now it's like, I don't even know if it's going to happen in 5 years,
Right.
for specific things. So I think a year is just kind of this arbitrary length of time we put on stuff. And it ties back into like resolutions of like, what am I going to set to do starting in January for the year? Is like, you don't know if it's going to take a year to do what you're doing. Or, if you're making like a life change, like, hey, I want to stop smoking. That's not a year goal. That's a life goal.
Yeah.
Like you have the rest of your life to stop. So
Right.
like you need to structure it that way versus like, and I think a lot of people get on that. And we've talked about this, I think on Ridiculous Dialogue with the Wired to Eat stuff. A lot of people talk about like, I'm going to go on this diet, but it's a temporary thing for them to like, I'm going to cut down and then I'm going to go back. It's like, well, no, that's not, you just need to change permanently.
Right.
And continue down that road.
Well, it's just like saying, it's just like calling days that you're off your meal plan or diet a cheat day. Like it's just, you're only cheating yourself.
Yeah,
it's
you are cheating just yourself.
Yeah, that's like saying that I know I'm going to eat like crap, so I'm just going to let myself be okay with it.
I do think that is what you were talking about at the beginning, like New Year's, like everybody eats like crap for Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, now I have to be good in January.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get a gym membership.
Well, and the problem is it carries over. Like you bring up the Wired to Eat thing just as an example. I mean, Kelly and I have been on that plan since August 1st. So we're close to, 5 months. I really even lost track of how long it's been, which is great. So we've just been on it so long that it just becomes second nature and we eat that way. But even over Thanksgiving, I allowed myself to have some stuffing. Like I normally don't eat carbs. Really much at all. I get it from fruit or various other sources, but there's no, we're not eating rice, we're not eating beans, we're not eating, really any kind of carbohydrates. So I allowed myself to be okay with that. And I felt that lethargic Thanksgiving feeling, and it made me go, God, I really hate feeling this way.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that I can experience it like this, where I know that it's something I don't want to feel anymore.
Input, output.
Yeah. And then, over Christmas, I allowed the same thing to happen, and we both got that feeling again. We're like, so I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing to, to relax every once in a while and be okay with eating things, because it does kind of remind you that those things are something that you don't want to eat. If that's your meal plan and you're on something like that. So
you don't want to have a little thing derail it. I mean, it's like you talking about the goal is like, I want to go shooting every week. Like that would be like if you missed a week and you were like, it's ruined. Might as well just stop.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, just keep going. Go.
Yep.
You don't have to set time limits or anything. And like, imagine if you guys had waited till the first of the year, to jump to the Wired to Eat thing.
Right.
That's a New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
Like you could have just started, done. You just started and you got on it. And now it's just more of like a habit.
Yep.
And you don't even notice it. Like,
yeah, and it's great too because the small blips in the system, like Thanksgiving and Christmas, are just something we can brush off and go right back to
roll
normal
by.
again. Yeah, so
crack open a LaCroix and keep going.
We're out of LaCroix. Podcast is over. No, that's a good point you bring up too. Is that a lot of people get derailed just because they don't hit every aspect of what they set out to do. Like you said, you're eating a certain way. You have one day that throws you off, and then it's like, screw it. I'll get back to it later. Yep. And that's the big thing is just this consistency and sticking with whatever you're doing, despite shortcomings or kinks in the
because I think our brains love procrastination.
Oh, yeah.
They love it.
Yep.
Because it gives your brain the ability to go, as long as it's later.
Yep.
Because it gives you that, like, I'm going to do it, but not right now.
Yep.
And that's just so freeing for the brain.
Yeah, that kind of comes back to one of the tenets as well with GTD is just getting things off your mind so they're not stressing you out, and continuing to remind you all the time is huge too. So while goals and ambitions are good, there's also something to be said for just letting those kind of things go and not continually letting them stir in your subconscious saying, hey, you got to go to the range. Hey, you got to go to the range.
I don't want to feel guilt
right.
all the time.
Yep.
And I think that's that's why I like the pre-planning aspect, and that's why I like what you're talking about with reflecting at the beginning of the year rather than setting myself up to fail. I'll reflect on how it went. Okay, what can we accomplish? And I guess in a way it is kind of setting a resolution, but not really. It's just pointing yourself in the right direction if you have been pointed in the wrong direction, or just saying, yep, I'm doing good, let's keep going that direction.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we've only got so much time.
Yeah.
And everyone's got the same amount of time. And most everyone's got the somewhat of the same abilities to do the things they want to accomplish in life. It's just a matter of sitting down and figuring out what's important.
Yep.
So, and it really does come down to the time value. Like, what I love that quote. It's like, I think it was Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, where he said, all we got to do is decide what to do with the time we're given.
Yeah.
Something to that effect. And I've always just kind of loved that because it puts things into perspective. It's like everybody has time. You just have to decide what to do with yours.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think that's a good closing point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, welcome to 2018. Hope you guys do some cool shit this year. All right, thanks for listening to Gear Tasting Radio. If you got questions, remember to use the #, Gear Tasting Radio, on any social media network. We'll find them and get them answered on the show here. We did actually just do a question episode.
We bought ourselves some time.
Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts when you're there. Let us know through a review and rating how you feel the show is going. We would absolutely love a 5-star review, and not that we're, super deserving of that. We'd like to think we are, but if there's something that we're doing that you don't feel is worthy of a 5-star review, shoot us an email at support@itstactical.com. Let us know. We've gotten some great feedback through there, so
some great stuff.
Please let us know. And if you could leave a 5-star review, it would greatly help us kind of push our podcast into the eyes of other people, because Apple is more favorable towards podcasts that have higher ratings, and they will show them to more people. So it would definitely help us out and the show. Last but not least, check out our Patreon page, where we've got a way for you to support and contribute on a monthly basis and allow us to give you back something in return. Patreon.com/ITStactical. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you, hear you. We'll be back.
Yeah.
Next week on
Sometime.
Tuesday. Yeah. Thanks for listening.